Okay, I think we might be live. I don't know. I don't know how these two integrate. Zoom and YouTube integrate too well. But it says that I'm streaming live on YouTube, so I thought I would just start talking. How is everybody today? I'm Susan Patang from the Quiet Zone Coaching, and this is the first time I am YouTubing live through Zoom. So if anything goes wrong, please forgive me in advance. But I wanted to talk to you today about toxic people, toxic situations. This seems to be something right now that everybody is asking me about. I'm a life coach, and I teach my clients the life skills that they need to manage stress, to deal with frustration, delete drama, and just deal with the bullshit of daily life. And one of the things a recurring theme I keep hearing is toxicity. People are toxic, situations are toxic. And I know this past holiday season, I there are two businesses I'm not going to do business with anymore because their people were so nasty. Talk about toxic. So it's kind of like, wow, what's going on out there? And I think what's happening is there's so much drama with the coronavirus and crazy politics and, storming the Capitol building and all kinds of crazy shit going down, that people are starting to feel a little twitchy. Okay. So what I wanted to do is I have this two-part series that we're going to talk about how to handle toxic people in toxic situations, how to communicate properly and effectively, and how to put people over there without being bitchy, okay, and set limits without being a psychopath. Because if we respond in kind to people who are toxic, that doesn't help anything, does it? It just sends more negative energy out into the world. This is not cool. Okay, this is not what we need. What we need right now is to be practical and understand that having a more warm and fuzzy society is the way to go, because then everybody feels good, things work better, problems get solved, solutions get found. So we kind of have to relearn how to interact with the world. And I think that's part of the problem too, because I know after working at home for the last almost the last year now, it's almost exclusively working from home. I go outside, I get in my car, and I look around like I've never been outside before. I've forgotten what it's like to go out. So let's get right down to it. Enough yammering. All right. So before we can start resolving conflict, and before we can start dealing with criticism and managing toxic situations, okay, we have to learn how to communicate. And let's talk a little bit about that, just basic communication. Okay. So when we're learning to, and this is the material that I give to my clients. Okay. This is the real thing, the real worksheets that I give to my clients that we're talking. I'm giving this to you for free. And learning to communicate with others effectively and handle conflict and deflect criticism without taking it personally. It helps reduce stress too, and in the anxiety of our interactions with the rest of the world. Okay. So here are some things that we need to remember to keep our interactions with others easier, more pleasant, and more stress free, right? So, the first thing that we have to remember is to always be curious. Be curious about other people. Everybody has a story, okay? You'll be surprised when you hear the things that other people tell you and that you might not have guessed once you get to know them a little bit. So, listen, okay? And always be willing to learn something new. A lot of the time, and we all do this, we all walk around encased in our own little bubble. Open the bubble up a little bit and look at the people around you. Okay. Nobody likes a know it all. And listening to the opinions and the observations of other people isn't just polite, but it's a great way to learn new things. And that doesn't mean you have to agree, but it does mean that you are validating the existence of somebody else. Okay. And if you're comfortable in your own skin, you don't need to be better than other people. Okay. We're going to talk about building self-esteem and self-confidence in another video. focus on other people when you're talking to them. Don't be fiddling with your phone. Don't be looking at the hot guy walking by. Don't be, whatever. Okay, what did you say? Don't be thinking about the next thing that you're going to say. Okay. And the best story that I could tell you to help you remember this is the Mr. Rogers School of Interpersonal Relationships. Mr. Rogers, remember him, The Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood, and the sneakers and the sweater, and yeah, right. You saw that when you were a kid, right? Mr. Rogers in real life, when he was interacting with other people, he focused, he like honed in on them. Okay. Like they were the only person on the face of the planet. Even if that person he was talking to was 2 years old, he zoomed in on them. Okay. And that was the only person in the world to him. So when you're talking to other people, give them that same courtesy. Focus in on what are they saying. Really listen instead of formulating your response or where you're going to go next or whatever. Focus in on what they're saying and what they're telling you, and be, like we said, be curious about other people and be willing to learn new things about them. Okay. And then there are a couple of other things that go along with basic communication skills that you probably already know, but are you doing them? Okay. The first one is the golden rule. Treat other people the way that you would want to be treated. That's pretty basic, isn't it? How would you like it if somebody talked to you the way that you talk to other people? Okay, think about that. Treat other people kindly. Okay, think about how you would want to be treated if you were them. Okay, and another thing is here's a corollary to it. Treat other people the way they want to be treated. So if there's somebody who wants to be left alone, leave them alone. Okay. You might think that you would like somebody to talk to you right now, but maybe they don't. Okay. How do they want to be treated right now? If they want to be left alone, leave them alone. Okay. Another, and I'm going to steal somebody else's words again. Another thing that you should remember is to be the change you want to see. Be the change you want to see. So instead of walking around and saying, oh, I can't believe people, everybody behaves like an asshole and blah, 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 blah. Okay. Be the person that you want to see. Be that behavior. Be an example to others. Okay. Nobody likes a complainer. Okay. So instead of bitching, be that example. Model the behaviors that you think are important for people to exhibit out in society when they're out in the world. We're going to have another class like this about how to determine your value system and how to determine who that person is that you want to be. But that's not for today. Today, I'm just going to tell you to be an example and be the person that you want to see. Walk a mile in someone else's moccasins. Okay. So again, instead of passing judgment, why is somebody behaving the way that they are? What is their motivation? What are they trying to do? A lot of times when people behave badly, it has nothing to do with you. They might have had a fight with their wife or their husband, or they might have the cat might have thrown up on the rug, or their dog chewed up their shoes, or who knows what, something that could have gotten cut off in traffic. So you don't know what somebody else has experienced. Walk a mile in their moccasins. They might have had people who are chronically nasty, might have had a really bad childhood growing up or experienced some really horrible things. And you also have to look at what people's intentions are. What are people's intentions? What is it that that you think their goal is? And a lot of times it doesn't have to do with being nasty. It just has to do with protecting themselves or trying to feel better because, their life might suck. Think about that. When we have, when somebody is acting in a way that's hurtful to us, think about what it must be that person. And sometimes compassion is what's going to come out. That doesn't justify what they did. Okay. If they did you dirt, they did you dirt. And that doesn't make it right. But by having compassion and saying, wow, you know what? It must suck to be them if they're that angry all the time. Right. I mean, think about that. Who wants to go through life like that? That's a place for compassion and pity. That's not a place for anger, and that'll help you be calm in dealing with the situation, because you might have to set a limit, which we'll talk about next time. But another thing is to view your own motivations. Okay, are you looking for attention? Are you looking to punish somebody for something? Or what is your motivation? Um, Give yourself the things that you're trying to get from other people. Don't look for approval. Don't look for validation. Like, oh, I want somebody to give me a pat on the back and tell me I did a good job, because I don't believe that I did a good job, because your self-esteem needs to be built. Okay. So look at your own motivation. Like I said, we'll talk about self-esteem in another episode. And ask yourself these three questions when you're not sure of how to behave. Okay. Am I hurting myself? Am I hurting someone else? And am I willing to accept the consequences of doing whatever it is I'm thinking of doing? Okay. Those three questions. We can do anything we want in life. I mean, you could walk up to somebody and poke them in the eye. You could do anything you want. But are you hurting them? Are you hurting yourself? And are you willing to accept the consequences of doing that? Okay. And a lot of times that's going to be your guideline, your standard for behavior is, I'm hurting someone else, I'm hurting myself, or I'm just not willing to go to jail for that. Okay. So think about those things when you're getting stressed out and you're having conflict with somebody else. Think about all of these things that we talked about. These are just basic communication skills. Another thing is that there are two kinds of listening skills that really, really help when you're shy and afraid to talk and interact with other people, or when you're trying to resolve conflict or deflect criticism. Okay. And they are called active listening and reflective listening. Reflective listening is just what it sounds like. You are reflecting back what you hear the other person saying. Okay. So, for example, if somebody says, well, let's see, what's the example that I have here? Okay. So reflective listening is statements that are, it sounds like you think I shouldn't have done that, or it seems like you want me to finish this later, or it looks like you feel angry about what I just did. So an example would be, let's say you've got kids and they're jumping on the trampoline, okay, in the backyard, and your mother-in-law says to you, oh, do you really think that's a good idea? Okay. What is she saying to you? She's saying to you that she doesn't think that that's very safe. Okay. So what you're going to do is you're going to reflect that back to her and say, wow, it sounds like you don't think that's a safe activity, or it sounds like you don't think I've put precautions in place, or that I have things prepared for them so that they don't get hurt. Okay. It seems like I'm hearing that. Okay. That's reflective listening. Okay. Active listening is something like that, but what you do now is you ask a question to go back into to get the other person to talk. And this is really good for people who are shy or afraid to interact with others, and or introverted. So here's how that would work. So say you meet somebody that has Great Danes. You're at a party, okay, and you could go up and go, hi, my name is Susan. What's your name? Oh, okay. Oh, this is a nice party, isn't it? And they say, oh, yes, it's a nice party. It's like, wow, I see you have a doggy pin on your collar. What kind of dogs do you have? I have 4 Great Danes. Wow, 4, those are big dogs. It must be hard to feed them. It must be hard to walk them. What's it like to give them a bath? You're asking questions. Oh, it sounds like you have a lot on your hands. Okay. Like, how do you do that? Where do you buy your dog food? What kind of dog food do you feed them? You haven't said anything. You're not a brilliant conversationalist. People love to talk about themselves. So if you can find one thing to ask them about, okay, let them talk and ask questions. And if you can't think of a question to ask, you could say, tell me more, or I'm interested in hearing about that. Okay. So let's say you meet somebody, you're at a party and you say, oh, hi, my name is Susan. How are you? What do you do for a living? And they say, I'm a doctor. Oh, that's fantastic. What kind of doctor? Oh, where is your practice? What kind of medicine do you practice? Oh, that sounds awesome. Do you have a lot of patients? Do you have to work on the weekends? Do you like to play golf? Ha ha ha. Okay. So, and what might happen is they might start asking you questions about you. So just answer them as honestly as you can and say, yeah, you know what? I don't play golf, but I'd love to hear about the game. What's it like to play golf? Now you're talking about something else. And you are getting them to talk about themselves. You are learning, you're being curious about other people. You might learn something that you never knew. You might find out how much it costs for a proctologist to have malpractice insurance. Who knows, right? So you could learn a whole bunch of stuff without having to worry about saying anything about yourself and just say, oh, wow, tell me more. Okay, so tell me what else is good about that job. And oh, well, what does your wife do? Okay, you can do this. And it's called active listening. All you're doing is reflecting back. Wow, so you have 4 Great Danes. That's a lot of dogs. What's it like to feed them? So you're using reflective listening. It sounds like, it looks like, I'm hearing that. Okay, but you're also asking a question. Somebody in line, here you go. You can actually start questions and calm people down. Have you ever been in a line that's moving really slow and people start bitching? Okay. So you could say, wow, it sounds like you're upset. You don't like to wait in line, do you? Okay. Well, every time I come into the store and they start ranting and raving, and you could say, wow, what is it about that bothers you? You must be in a hurry. Oh, I see you have to go. Yeah. Oh, you have kids. Oh, you have to go pick up your son. Tell me about your son. Now you've distracted them from the line. They get to talk about themselves and their precious child. Okay. You've just calmed them down. Okay. You've learned something about somebody else. You've diffused the situation. So you can use active listening in more than one way, and reflective listening. And we're going to talk, and the next time I go live with you, which I'm hoping is going to be tomorrow morning, we're going to talk a little bit about what happens when you do get into a disagreement with somebody else in a toxic environment, in a toxic situation, or with toxic people. Okay. And how to diffuse that using these skills that we just talked about. So I'm going to give you a real quick rundown. Okay. Being curious about other people. Always be willing to learn something new. Focus on the person you're talking to. Remember the golden rule. Be the change that you want to see. Walk a mile in someone else's moccasins. Examine your own motivations. Ask yourself, am I hurting myself? Am I hurting someone else? And am I willing to accept the consequences of what I'm going to do? Think about reflective listening. It sounds like you want, I'm hearing that you think, okay? And also active listening. Wow, I'm hearing that you say this. Tell me more, okay? For those of you who might be a little more shy. So I hope you enjoyed this. I'm going to end this now and come back tomorrow, and we'll talk a little bit more about toxic environments and how to diffuse people who criticize. So speak to you then. Have a